Yeah. So thank you, Joanne and Denise and Loie. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I really don't have anything particular in mind because I really would be interested in hearing what brings people to want to join this course or hear about this course or what questions. And kind of from there, maybe we can swing back around to whatever I might have started with. Is that Does that make sense? I mean, I could just present kind of the format, like we're, going to be doing the course on November 12th. It's a 4-hour live Zoom course, and we'll be talking about trauma and flower essences, kind of both of them from ground zero, but also going to some really rich and deep stuff. So covering a fair amount of ground and looking at the structure, like how trauma becomes structured in the self, and what flower essences are for anybody who hasn't used them. I'll just do kind of a little basic primer on those, a little history and stuff, dosage, all of that, so someone might know how to get started. And then looking at different groups of flower essences based on some of what we learn about trauma in terms of that kind of structure. So I won't teach necessarily each flower essence in depth, that there won't be enough time to do that, but we'll talk about each flower essence in terms of like what kind of groups or categories might we be looking at, so that at the end we can talk about based on all of that, how do we make a blend personalized for an individual that is also trauma informed? Does that make sense? And then we'll present some case studies too.
Hmm. And you'll be working with Bach flower essences, correct?
And others.
Oh, okay. It won't be limited to Bach.
It won't be limited to Bach, no. And I've got a former student who's also, he's a flower essence. He makes some, and he's in Florida with a whole bunch of, like, he's got a great big garden, and he's mostly specializes in stones, but he does a lot of work with flower essences, and recently wrote a book that came out this year about flower essences. And he gave a presentation at the Flower Essence Conference earlier this year about baneful herbs as flower essences for healing and trauma. So if he's present, he'll probably also, like, I might ask him, like, what categories might you put some of these essences that you work with in? Because it'd be great for everybody to have like kind of a large toolkit, so that if you're familiar with some plants and not others, each plant is its own being and has its own resonance, but there are also some similar resonances between different kinds of plants throughout different systems.
Great.
So, does that spark any questions, or did anybody come with questions already?
Go
Oh,
ahead,
go
Joanne.
ahead.
No,
No,
no, no. I want you to go first.
Okay. I don't have any specific questions, and I am planning to join you on the 12th. I just don't know if I can be there the whole time. And I'm fascinated with trauma and trauma response and how that gets, kind of just lodged and stuck in our bodies, and what we can do to release that. I think flower essences are something I have very little experience with. I think I do trust that there's something to this, but because it's such a like almost ephemeral thing, like I can't see it, I can't smell it, I can't taste it, I can't, if I compare it to herbs or essential oils, I can't really interact with it the same way. And it takes so much time and persistence before it feels like there might be some kind of a result. So I'm curious, I guess, how do we know we're interacting with the right one? Or does it just take a period of time before we'll know. And then when you're blending, there's no immediate feedback on this, unless there is a way to have some kind of more conscious, direct relationship with it while you are making it or taking it, so that you can know. I haven't gotten to a point where I am getting any feedback.
Yeah.
From that.
Great question.
Have you been working with a practitioner, or have you been selecting ones for yourself?
I've been selecting them for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this may or may not be part of it. But, I guess the legacy that we have with flower essences in this country right now, I would say appears to have come from starting with Dr. Bach, who was the Welsh physician in the 30s, who kind of developed flower essences for the modern world, let's say. He thought that these were going to be really well received. This medicine was going to be well received because his homeopathic discoveries were really well received, but his colleagues kind of like didn't respond the way he expected. And so in order for the medicine to be shared, he ended up kind of simplifying it and teaching it to lay people. And so that it could be easily used. And it became, it is medicine of the people. And it became in a way that we have these little descriptions that say, like, use this for this. And there's not in-depth understanding that's just like, you don't get like a 20-page pamphlet about each remedy. You get like 2 sentences. So it makes it really hard to self-prescribe in a way that, whereas if somebody who has in-depth training and you're going to work with them, they might be able to see like a resonance that could fit in a way that you might sense it more.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, the way you were also describing, like, I can't see it, I can't smell it. It makes me, I think of like, I have a friend who's very like grounded, earth, like, carpenter person, the way that she works. I don't know if this describes you at all, but I gave her flower essences when she was at this particular crux in her life. And they totally worked because things fell into place. She made her decision, she got on her path, and she's like, I didn't really feel anything. And so sometimes, we all have a different sort of constitution. And so some people might not have that kind of like hypersensitivity that some of us have for feeling this like super, super subtleties. And yet, when you're in a therapeutic relationship with somebody, they can come like, and they know what you're taking and they know you, they can ask you like, well, did you notice this? Or did you notice that? Or, well, I've noticed that your behavior, or I've noticed that whatever it is, so there's a couple different possibilities there, among more, I'm sure. I don't know if that answers your question or your concern or speaks to it a little bit.
It does. Yeah. I think, I guess working with a practitioner, you're getting feedback from an observational perspective, not just your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to just jump in and say that, like, I think being a person, like with 6 planets in Earth, I'm a bit like your carpenter friend, Loie, and I feel like flower essences always impact me that way, that it isn't like someone banged me over the head and I'm like, oh my God, like, but it's always like in retrospect, I can see that something has shifted that I was hoping would shift as a result of starting on a particular flower essence or flower essences. Mm-hmm. But it isn't like a eureka moment where it's like boing, like, that flower essence just transformed me. It's much more subtle than that. Yeah, that's been my experience anyway. So
yeah, that's interesting feedback.
And I'll tell you, Joy, when I first started using them, I worked for a holistic physician back in the 90s, Rudolph Ballantyne, and he was using them, and I was so skeptical. I was like, come on. It's like we're basically taking water here. Like, this is crazy. Like, how can this? But it's kind of like astrology. It's like, why does it work? How does it work? It works.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
have faith in it. I do have faith in it. I wouldn't say I'm skeptical, but there's just so much patience involved. It's like, it feels like you have to take it and kind of forget that you're taking it because you don't want to have all these expectations of it either, right?
That can be.
Like,
There's
for me,
like a fiery part of you, isn't there? Like a fiery aspect. I feel like in a conversation we had in group, there was something that felt like sort of accelerated and fiery about you.
Mm.
And that's what you're describing, that impatience. Would that be accurate?
I've never seen myself as much fire, but I'm sure I do have some of that. Like, come on, let's get going already. Like, where's the results here?
Yeah. One thing that one colleague once said about it's like it's easier to light a fire. It's like easier to spark action in yin than it is to calm yang. Like it takes longer to, there's like, so I don't know if that might be part, like have anything to do with it, but that is one thing. Speaking of a certain type, like flower essence type, like it can take longer to see results from, because it takes longer to calm the yang than it does to see results from like kind of getting yin in motion.
Mm-hmm.
In our society, at least in modern society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that, like, and it might also be helpful thinking. I mean, I am always amazed when I see flower essence working in people. It's always feels miraculous. One way to see what flower essences are is just to think about like the molecular structure of water being not completely written, because there's like a loose sort of half attached molecule that makes water be able to kind of take on different messages and memories. Mm-hmm. And so flower essences are really like these, it's like a photograph of a blueprint of the thing, right? That's kind of written into the molecular structure. And then another way to describe them is just like light infused water. So you're an acupuncturist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to begin working with flower essences and somewhere down the road, you're like trying to see the results, it seems like one really significant way, at least I'll speak for myself, in coming from working with diet, working with herbs and seeing the necessity in all those, but then seeing like when there's a certain pattern that just that won't change, that's stuck, that can be based in some sort of personality constitution, or which also can be a way of saying a specific trauma survival strategy. And like kind of unlocking that trauma piece so that the person that's stuck in the survival strategy can be a way for things to shift, like really shift.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's great, actually, because those coping strategies that become so entrenched in us as a way of being and moving through our life, like getting those to shift, which ultimately they really want to, right? It's like they're no longer optimal. It's really
yeah, and it's like the healthy part of us that can be in the flow wants them to shift, with the part of us that like believes, like the ego that believes that it is the thing, but really it's just the pattern,
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't want to let go. And you'll see it sometimes in working in therapeutic process. You'll see like that pattern get tighter and stronger, and like it's like brings out its teeth and nails before it finally perishes or, you know, moves on to the next thing.
So the flower essences are working on the part that is entrenched and doesn't want to let go.
That's one part. So when in this course, looking like from a trauma-informed perspective, if you're just working on that part, it's not going to let go. Why would you leave someone defenseless? Why would you get, you know, people have defenses for a reason and survival strategies for a reason, you know, thinking of it from like functional psychology. So we need to look at all the parts.
Right. So the blending is a matter of, so one part's dismantling the coping structure, but another flower essence might be like kind of strengthening another part that is actually like really well functioning or something, or well adapted to living. That's more a question than a statement, actually. Well, what I
would say that yes.
Okay.
The answer to the question is yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you see, like, from this course, like someone like me taking this course, I've never taken a flower essences course before. I've just dabbled in it for myself. In terms of using what you're teaching for patients, what is sort of the path there, or what are the qualifications? What are the, I mean, will you talk about, I guess, how do we bring this into our practice, and what are some of the, you know, risks, some of the, for someone like me who has very little knowledge, right? And taking your course will give me more knowledge, but it's not going to give me, you know, perhaps what I would need to prescribe.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. So there's like a couple parts, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 parts to answer that question. But one, just from this course all by itself, I think that understanding the parts, like understanding trauma more, or like another language for it, and the way people kind of structure themselves around it, all on its own could be just useful for you, anybody in practice, to be able to kind of see what's behind the curtain. Like, what are we working with? What are we looking at? That in itself, I think, is a benefit that anybody can just come away from for their own process, for their own understanding, and for seeing their clients already with like another light. And then just some of the basics of like the super basics of like, what are flower essences and how do I, prepare a bottle, and that would allow you to, like give a rescue remedy, for example, and see like, when does it make sense? There's another course that will be coming up that I'm offering really soon. That's the introduction to the book of Bach flower essences in Chinese medicine, where I like talk about different reasons and ways that you would want to use flower essences in a Chinese medical practice, and some specific basic applications in practice. Since you already have a practice and you're already working with patients, you already have your ethics, you already have, like all of the things you need to have a clinical practice. That base supplies you with a huge amount of capacity to, I'm assuming it's supplying you with a huge amount of capacity to like walk with people through some healing.
Mhm.
And acupuncture catalyzes things in people, and you follow up, right? And you see progress. And so flower essences, they're powerful catalysts. And they can't do harm really. You can do harm in a therapeutic relationship if you don't have understanding of how that works, or what the, what kind of boundaries, healthy boundaries, and supporting your client, and all of those kinds of things. If you already have a practice where you're doing those things, a flower essence itself, it can catalyze things that can come up that the person might need the therapeutic relationship for, and you're there for that.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
This course will absolutely not train you in becoming a flower essence practitioner. Like,
Right.
yeah, that's a whole other, there's just a lot to know.
Yeah.
There's a lot to know, but it can get you started on having more of a lens, and just like starting with the kind of bare bones basics.
And that course that Loie's referring to, Bach flower remedies in Chinese medicine, is she and I are working on it it'll come onto the platform soon. It's one it won't be a live event. It's one you'll engage with yourself, and it includes a copy of the book. So
Cool.
yeah, which Loie translated from the Spanish. So,
I look forward to that course too.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like understanding both of those together, like understanding trauma and having a framework, and understanding Chinese medicine and having a framework, and being able to apply flower essences. Well, kind of in so many other, like being able to apply astrology, being able to apply acupuncture and herbs. When you have those kind of two understandings, one from the Western point of view, it's like the psyche and how it's structured, and then, the thousands of years of how nature works and what it looks like in a person. That's powerful.
Mm.
Yeah. Denise, did you have any questions?
Not really so much, but I think that flower essences are just, they can work on such a subtle level that it seems like, I think from your course description, that it's not forcing people who might be experiencing trauma to make change, but it's kind of like a nudge, right? It seems like it's like they work. I mean, I know that they work. I've seen them work. But it feels like flower essences to me feel like a gentle push rather than like a shoving people towards their Tao or changing their life. Is that how you see it, as far as coming from trauma-informed place, Loie?
Yeah, in part. And I think what Benjamin's question that was the answer in itself of, like, let's not tear down people's defenses, even though it's getting in the way of their Tao. Like, what resources do they have? How can we resource them? And so that it comes organically is, I think, kind of what you're asking and saying, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where trauma informed becomes really important, compared to just something like using flower essences in a more superficial way.
Loie, I know that flower essences can be used for all kinds of processes, but your focus with this course, at least, is on trauma-informed flower essence use. And I don't know that I know exactly how you found your way to working, what it was for you about working with trauma. How did that come to be?
I mean, I first started knowing about and using flower essences very, very minimally when I lived in California in the late 90s. And it wasn't until I moved to Spain that where Bach flower remedies and flower essences like have a much more culture, and there's so many more training opportunities, so much more in-depth use. And so I was using flower essences already. I realized like I got a calling to get training in flower essence therapy. And then somewhere along the way, after that, I had to go through a healing process. And, kind of, I got to the end of my rope with what was going on with me. And I started doing a therapeutic process as a client of flower essence therapy with a trained practitioner. Because it was like, oh, this soul over here, I can tell that I'm going to be safe. And I had no idea what was coming. But the flower essences that he prescribed just really broke things open. And so much of it was trauma, the hidden trauma. And so I just kind of worked through, and it had to do with lineage, and it was personal, and it was a whole mishmash.
That's the article that I posted last week. That was the story around that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story around that. And so also in Spain, in Europe, and I think South America too, there's this method called family constellations, and constellations in general, that is really popular. And it's about ancestral trauma. And then so doing that work also like helps unlock and move forward in releasing some of that stuff. And then when I came to the US, when I moved back here 8 years ago, I thought, okay, I have this really in-depth flower essence therapy training. My clients, if they need an acupuncturist, I can refer them. If they need a massage therapist, I can refer them. If they need any other thing, but there's nobody to refer them to for this kind of constellation work, trauma work. And a teacher just started offering this training, like kind of right when I was having this question. So I did a couple years of training in a method that comes out of family constellations that is about, and this is kind of a lot of the theoretical base that I'll be teaching in this course coming up on November 12th, is about kind of disentangling parts of ourselves from inherited trauma and reconnecting the parts of ourselves to gain access to our vitality. And that's done through like this sort of group resonant work, or it can be one-on-one resonant work, where it's very hard to describe the method itself. It's like swimming in your own psyche almost, and in three-dimensional space, going through this somatic sort of process. Step by step, not just all at once, using an intention that the client sets in order to create the safe space from doing no more work than a person can handle at any given time. And so I got trained in that, and I've been practicing that with clients. That's kind of maybe two of the three facets of my work. The two main facets of my work are the flower essence therapeutic process, and then this work, these sessions are kind of like these sort of little mini psychic surgeries that we'll do. Or sometimes somebody comes to me just for that work. And that's when you can really see in like three-dimensional space the different parts of the self. And there's so much information there. And working in a resonant way with people provides so much language around and felt sense of these parts of the traumatized self that it makes me kind of speechless, because it's so deep. Yeah, I think that's an answer.
Yeah, it's a good answer. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Joanne, did you have any more you wanted to ask? You asked some great questions.
No, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Yeah.
Me too.
Thank you for doing this half hour with us. And I'm glad I was able to come and chat a little bit. Yeah, I'm really excited for not only the 12th, but your class after that. Sounds
And
great too.
Joanne, we'll record the 12th. So if you can't be there for the whole time,
Perfect.
Mhm.
we'll record it. Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
hoping to
Chloe?
be able
Yeah.
to be there for most of it.
Yeah.
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 And
And-
then if you've got, like, there could even be specific questions, not just questions coming out of the material, but you might even be bringing specific questions regarding a case, and maybe we'll be able to get to that and, not necessarily develop a formula, but kind of what are we looking, I don't know what the question might be, but I'm hoping that there will be some hands-on thoughtful stuff.
Yeah. Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you both. Thank you, Loie.
Thanks for all your questions. I look forward to
Denise, do you
seeing
feel complete with the conversation?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do have a question. Does one have to be a member of the community to take the class?
That is a great question. And this question has been coming up. I was actually going to just speak to it with Loie, but I'm glad I'll speak to all of you. So it's been coming up with the Aroma Salon because a lot of people, like from Alana's circle, want to take it, but they're like, then they come and they get confused and they're like, what's this, a new possibility thing? But the way Mighty Networks works is it's like a new possibility is the building. And within the building, there are rooms, and trauma-informed flower essence blending is a classroom within the building. And in order to get into that classroom, you have to get through the front door of the building. So when you buy the course, you automatically become a member of a new possibility. And they don't have to engage with a new possibility at all. They can just attend that class and never come back again.
Perfect. So we can just send the link to someone?
So you just send them the link. Yeah. And if
Okay.
you don't have the link, I can send you the link. Yeah. The link, see, and the way it works, Joanne, I'll just explain. When you create a new course on Mighty Networks, there's an external link, what they call an external link for somebody who's never, ever been at a new possibility. And the external link gets them through the front door and gives them access to the course. And then there's an internal link for people who are already members of a new possibility. So the people who they would need the external link. I would have to give you the external link.
Yeah, if you could send that would be great.
Sure.
And then the external link, if somebody were already a member, the external link would just bring them to, like, you're already a member, so now you can just sign up.
Yeah, it won't work. It'll say you're already a member. It won't work. I don't know exactly what message they would get, but it wouldn't let them sign up for the course.
Okay.
So it's better to use the internal link if you're already a member. Yeah. Yeah. It's a little awkward, honestly, but that's just how Mighty Networks works. There's no way around it. So I'll send you the external link. Yeah. 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 I'll put it up in the article too when I post this recording. I'll put it up.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. And I'll
Thank you,
just say
guys.
that once they're in the front door, Joanne, they can look around the building, they can look around, but they don't have to. But it's like they couldn't get into the inner healing circle, for instance, because that is another paid space that with a locked door unless you're paying for that membership. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Can they look at other classes while they're in the
They can look
building?
at the sales pages for other classes,
Okay.
and they have very thorough descriptions on them. Yeah.
So
and
they
then
could look at your astrology class, for example, and sign up.
yes, internally they could, yes, internally, and they could buy it
Well,
internally.
and they could also like create their profile and chat with other members and have like ask questions and be part of any free, like
Free events.
included
Hmm.
forum sort of, right?
Like this event, this info session, I posted to the entire network. So everyone in the building knew that this was happening today. They and had the opportunity to attend. Yeah.
Got it.
Some things I post just to Inner Healing Circle. So only people in that space.
Mhm.
Or we can just post to like this course space and only people who have bought this course would see it. That's how it works in there. Yeah. Anyway, I'll send you the external link.
Thank you.
All right. It's getting dark here and I don't have any lights
Yeah.
on. So
Twilight.
okay,
Okay.
Thanks for your
you
time.
guys. Yeah, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Chloe,
night.
hold on a sec, okay?